The Walking Dead Season 7 Episode 2, The Well. Now, coming off of the crazy premiere, I'm sure a lot of people were a lot happier that this was a much more calm down episode. My girlfriend thought it was a waste of time. Like, she has, like, just no respect for any sort of storytelling when it's a horror show. She's like, it wasn't scary at all. Like, I don't know why she said that. Like, this, as many episodes as we've had in this show, there have been a million episodes that were not scary in any way, shape, or form. But I don't know. So going through this, we finally meet King Ezekiel. I was waiting for him to show up. I was really happy in the last season. I was like, all right, they introduced the kingdom, the people from the kingdom, and I was just waiting. I was like, all right, let's see what the heck happens with this. They have a tiger that's supposed to come into play. It's a big part of the comic. And they did it, and I was super happy to see it in this episode. I was just really excited they were walking, Morgan is taking Carol. And I'm just like, oh man, I just can't wait to see this freaking tiger. And it was really cool. So I really love that. I think it's some pretty good CG. Like, of course it has to be CG. It's a freaking tiger. But I think it's good CG. It doesn't look super crazy or crappy or anything like that. I thought it was well done. But it was cool seeing King Ezekiel. It starts off and it's really funny. And it's just crazy. He's playing like an actual king. Like, the fact that they even call him King Ezekiel is just crazy. And he's doing like Shakespeare and stuff like that. It's like, and just the way he was speaking with everything, it was just really crazy. And then, like, his second in command is hilarious to me. Like, it was like at the end of the episode where he's like, if you need me, holler. I'll be in hollering range. And he's like, deuces. I was like, this guy is hilarious to me. Like, it was so weird, but it was just really funny to me. So it's just all over the top. Like, I didn't notice this when they first did it. I noticed it, I think, the second time they showed it. But it was so funny that he had, I don't think this is in the comics, but he has, like, his actual quotes. It was like, drink from the well, replenish the well. And then it was like K-E. When they first did it, where Morgan and Carol were walking through, there's another saying on the wall. I didn't pay any attention to it. But it was so funny, and it's just in the room, and they focus on it. I was like, wow, that is freaking hilarious. So I love that, and they have just his sayings were just like on the walls and stuff, and like the, I don't know, the like Roman font and stuff like that. It was hilarious to me. I was like, that is just super funny. He's crazy over the top. He's got a freaking tiger, which is absolutely insane. But as it goes through, the rest of the episode, we see who this man really is, especially when we get to the end with he and Carol. But it goes through, and it's, kind of the first half, most of this episode really is kind of Morgan's journey. And him kind of going through and wanting to be a part of anything, really. That's kind of his character. He wants to be a part of something that's actually useful and good. And so he helps them out as they help Carol. And Carol even tells him, like, once you're not watching and someone else isn't looking, that's what I'm going to take off. So as he goes out and he does his thing, that's what she does. But we see his journey, with Ezekiel in the kingdom, and they take him on this mission where, they have to get the pigs and stuff. And it's like, they have these pigs, and they lead them all into this room. And so they get really, really full off of, dead meat and zombies and stuff. And they're like, why the walker? And the guy's like, because I want their guts full of rot. And when he said that, I was like, I'm pretty sure these aren't actually for eating. Like, these have to be for something else. It's not for them to eat. And that ends up being the case because, of course, Neegan's people come into play, and they want their offering, just like they now have with Alexandria, and like they had with the Hilltop. So they come in, it's like, oh, hey, we got our pigs. They look bigger this time. He was like, made sure they were well fed and stuff. And I guess the plan is like to at least try what they can to fill them up full of, zombie meat and see if that does something, in any way, shape, or form, if that does something to actually help them. But, it's just crazy. They have that scene, and then Ezekiel's dude ends up finding one of the saviors, and, Ezekiel stops it, and the other guy gets his free hit in, but he keeps going until the other guy does end up stopping him. And then it's like, like he says, like, next time is produce, so make sure you have it. And if not, he'll have to go first, basically, because he caused an issue. We got to, we have to kill him first then. So it was either, he was talking either about the guy, or that was like what they do in a lot of TV shows where they say he or she. And it's told, which they did in this episode when Morgan was like, that's all he knows, and then Carol has to say, who's he? So unless the guy was talking about someone else that was random, he was talking about the bodyguard that was in the fight with the dude just then. So they have the little moment, and Morgan freaks out where he's like, did you bring me out here because you knew I could kill them if I had to? But Ezekiel says it's the opposite. And so he ends up having him train the kid who doesn't know, who really sucked at fighting. It's like, just like we practice. And he hits the freaking zombie in the arm. It's like, he clearly didn't practice enough. Like, that's just terrible. Like, how do you... It was just way off. It wasn't like he hit it in the neck or like half its head and he didn't do it hard enough. It was like way over here, he hit it in the shoulder. This doesn't even come up to like my ear. Like, I can kind of feel my ear if I do it at an angle. But he was just way off. And I'm just like, wow, he sucks. So Morgan teaches him, how to use the bow staff and stuff. And we'll see how that plays out, if this kid even makes it or not. But it was an interesting little journey. And, he has that and he wants to stay. Seemingly, at least his thing is that he kind of feels comfortable there. But Carol, of course, starting off with her sort of innocent act where she's like, oh wow, I'm just happy and this and the fake crying and all that stuff. And so, she goes through and we get to the end of the episode and Ezekiel, of course, shows up in the little garden section. And he talks to her and he lays it all out there. He gets rid of all the over-the-top Shakespeare stuff and all of that. And he just sits down and he's just like, let's see you do it with the tiger. They make up all sorts of stories. Like, it was just so different. It was funny. And it was just the real him. And it's like, hey, I don't do this just for me. It's like, it's partly because of these people. It's a nice little bonus that they do treat me that way. It's kind of cool. But it really is for them. They probably need the contradiction of the real world, as crappy as it is. They need this little fairy tale to exist in themselves. And it makes sense. Like, the whole story of the tiger is he was a zookeeper. He helped it once. And Shiva liked him. It was like, hey, you helped me out. And so Shiva never did anything. And I love that they used this line. This was basically, I think, the exact line from the comic. But when he talks about how she could easily, run away from him if she wanted to, or she could pull the chain from him, or basically just rip his whole arm out. She won't do that. She, because of the relationship that they have. The one thing that they may or may not do it. I don't know, so I won't talk about it. But there is something else in the comic book version of that conversation that was shown as well. That they kind of talked about it as far as his relationship, to the past world and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I was curious if they were gonna, talk about it, but they didn't do it. So they might be saving that, or they might. I don't know if they'll do it in the current time because it kind of wouldn't make a lot of sense. But there's just something else there that they kind of left out of the comic. But his actual line was, I think, verbatim, what he said in the comic book. So I was like, that's pretty cool. He talks about how she won't fight back because of their relationship, and how he just does that for the people, and partly for himself. It's kind of cool. But he puts it all out there to Carol, and is like, hey, you can go and not go, as he puts it, which is her, ultimately it ends up being her going to the house that's like right outside of the kingdom. So I thought that was cool. She actually does end up doing that, at least for now, because she's still like a tiny bit wounded, a little bit. She doesn't have to use the wheelchair, but she's still a little bit hurt, by the end of the episode. But she goes to the house and she stays, on her own, but she's still, right there just outside of the kingdom. So she left, but she didn't really leave too much. So she does kind of take his advice a little bit, at least for now. She'll probably take off from that house very soon as well, but who knows. But I like the way they did, and he shows up at the end, and she's freaking out and it's like, who's randomly knocking at the door, and then you just hear Shiva roar, and then it's just a dude with an effing tiger on the porch, and a pomegranate. He's like, you really got to try one of these, and then that's just the end of the episode. So I like the way they ended it. I thought it was pretty cool, but I like this episode. It was, getting to see this new territory and stuff like that. Like I said, my girlfriend hated it, said, she stayed up late with me to watch it. She was like, it wasn't worth staying up for. I was like, I thought it was a really good episode. I'm like, we're meeting brand new characters and stuff, and just because it was exposition, she didn't really like it, and I'm like, that's the whole, like, that's a big chunk of the series is a ton of exposition. I don't know. I guess she just didn't care about the characters because they were all new characters. So, I don't know. I still enjoyed the episode. Um, I'm excited to see more of these characters, and of course, I'm very excited for when they finally end up meeting the rest of the crew, because at some point, Carol for sure, but I would assume Morgan as well, they're going to go back to Alexandria and be like, hey, this is something that's happening. It just so happens, when they go back to Alexandria, they're going to find out, hey, these are the same people that are, at the kingdom and stuff like that. So eventually, of course, these characters are going to end up meeting and stuff like that. They seem to be the furthest away as well. Like, I mean, they're also on horses, so it's kind of hard to tell because we had, the team from Alexandria, the main cast. They were going to the hilltop in the RV, and it would have taken them. I think they in the last season finale it was supposed to be like under a day or something like that, and then of course it just kept getting screwed up. So it would have taken a couple hours. I think it was supposed to take like 6 to 8 hours or something. So based on that, it seems like the kingdom is the furthest away because they had it where Carol was, in the car, and then they were walking for a super long time, and then in this episode they're on horses for a super long time, and then they still have, in the very beginning, they're on horses, Carol passes out, she wakes up, and they're dealing with zombies, and then they still have to go even further to finally reach the kingdom. So I'm pretty sure, like, they're the furthest away, and we still don't know where the Savior camp is at exactly, but that's coming up pretty soon, because in the next episode, it's Daryl focused, and we're going to get to see the inner workings of the Savior's main camp where Neegan is. Everybody's kneeling down every time he walks past. So we're going to see some stuff. I don't know exactly if they're going to show this this is very specific moment in the comics where you first see the inside of the Savior community. I don't know if they're going to utilize that, but it would be a very good scene that I think would fit fairly well, considering what everyone's seen now with the premiere. It's a very fitting scene, and it'll explain something that's already happened, and I won't go into specifics, but there's a certain scene that I think we might get to see. I hope we do, because it'll just be like, oh, that explains this, this certain thing that happened in the previous episode, or in between episodes maybe. So I hope we get to see that, and like I said, I don't want to spoil it, what it may or may not be. If they even show it, they might not show it at all, but I think we'll get to see it. I think we will, but either way, we're going to get to see the inside of this camp, and Daryl and his little journey of loneliness and probably self-doubt and self-hatred and stuff like that from what happened. But I am excited for the next episode. I did enjoy this one. I like this one. If you saw my last review, I didn't care much for the premiere because I was like, oh, I saw that coming, and they just did exactly what they did in the comics, so it didn't excite me. But this I enjoyed. It was like kind of the same thing. It was slightly different because different characters, were at the kingdom. Neither of those characters meet Ezekiel at all in the comics. 'Cause, well, Morgan I think does, but Carol in the comics has been dead since like the prison, or even before the prison. I don't even remember. She's been dead a super long time ago though in the comic books. So it was very different and stuff. And even the way they're doing the Savior camp is different as well, because in the comics that's a different character too, because of course Daryl doesn't exist. So we actually see the inside of the Savior camp from a totally different perspective there. But I'm definitely excited for this next episode, of course. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about this one, though. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And, of course, I want to know what you guys think about Ezekiel and the kingdom itself. We only got to really know a couple of the characters, specifically Ezekiel, of course, because he's the king. But I want to know what you guys think about the kingdom and what it could mean for the rest of the series. If if you're a comic reader, I want to know what you think about the representation of the character, because I think they did a good job. Like I said, I thought Shiva looked fairly nice for the CG. Kari Payton, I really love him. He's a great voice actor. He's like Cyborg in Teen Titans and Aqualad and Young Justice and a bunch of other stuff. He's been in games and other things too. So it's cool to see him in like a live action show, because I was like, it's weird seeing someone I've known for so long as a voice actor. He's now like one of the main characters in a live action show that I watched. So it was funny seeing him, because like, man, I've never seen him, like his actual face, so much before. I've known him as like, animated characters and shows I've watched. But I like the representation. Want to know what you guys thought about Ezekiel and the kingdom, as a whole. And of course, what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.